What a joy. What a joy to have this opportunity to talk about from trauma to transformation, the circle of life. Jeff Bezos says that for his employees, the circle of life is not work-life balance, but is rather enjoying work, life, family intertwined together. How often do we try to balance at best work, responsibility, and life? COVID-19 particularly has caused us to reflect upon these aspects. In the midst of nonprofit CEOs who know, as many have been founders, know that the value of work, fatigue, and even trauma has set in. What I want to talk about today is the historical realities of that trauma, and also to relate it to solutions and looking at as the model, the corporate lifestyles given by Adizes. Much like a modern business factors in the depreciation of a piece of machinery, as it loses value, some planter capitalists apply similar complex formulas to track the value of slaves as they increased in value, as they got stronger, as they are trained up. This tracking was not based on an evaluation that set them down. It was not based on an assessment that was collaborative based on what they thought their vision or thought that their gifts were. It was just based on those trackings. So the question is this: historically, through slavery, you have two interpretations generally, that those in the North were industrialists for the most part, and those in the South had the worst form of chattel slavery known in recorded history. That they had these beautiful plantations where life seemed normal, and there was a chain management that came from labor and work in the field that came from overseers that were given that title based on what the master or the plantation owner saw fit. However, we know that the production of cotton was mostly for those within the North and even to the British world. So we know that they had to have a symbiotic relationship of how this chain management was trickled down from the North to the South, and then the perception of those who was overseeing them. Those who were overseeing them had to show Northerners that they were being hard in the labor, in the capitalistic realities of what was taking place. So history had to show that in the South, they were not just singing antebellum songs, or antebellum, that was the fantasy, but that they were producing through the chain management that was given from their Northern counterparts. So the plantation overseers, they were middle managers. They were among the first salaried managers in the country. And beyond American borders, West Indian plantations often relied on complex hierarchies, including both enslaved headmen and free managers. The hierarchy of, let's say, a sugar plantation in Jamaica looks a whole like a multi-divisional American company. Why? There was workforce planning. Larger plantations, especially those growing sugar and cotton, required an endless stream of human labor in varied jobs. Brutal conditions for the enslaved often meant an early death. Planters carefully tracked the age, the health, and productivity of various types of workers so they could plan ahead to train children born on the plantation for particular jobs. We see this. We see this in corporate America. We see this in the military. That instead of paying the high salaries or the salaries of a lieutenant colonel, they would rather have that person retire so they could pay a lieutenant less money or those and do most of the work. This happens in corporate America. That when somebody is working 18 years or so, they replace them with someone with a lower salary to do more work. And let me say this. This is my challenge. The trauma is taking place, and the realities of CEOs knowing this, knowing that people are being laid off, and those should be happy to have a job. So instead of treating them the way that they should treat, as a matter of fact, giving them more liberty to deal with this trauma, what are we doing? We're overworking them for 2-3 jobs to raise our projected and perceived market value. My first question is this, even though I won't be able to discuss this for you to ponder, is this. As a nonprofit CEO that I know that you have built from the ground up from your vision, I'm going to talk more about this. Have you been guilty, or have you assessed your labor practices, at least from the pandemic? And I'll give you some time with transition in the last year, from August 2020 to August of 2021. Have you assessed that? Have you looked at yourself as a CEO? Have you given yourself time to look of how you have evolved? What has been the difference of your labor practices and treatment of workers post and pre-COVID-19? Also, I want you to ponder, what are some of the things that you are willing to connect with, just as abolitionists who saw the unfair realities of the sin of slavery knew that the way that this will be changed is through laws and lobbying? What are some of the ways that you will use your influence and lobbying to change labor laws in the midst of your assessment? Let's go to Adizes. Adizes explains and correlates that in every corporate lifestyle is similar to the life cycle and culture of our lives. Birth, infancy, courtship, adolescence, prime, early bureaucracy, aristocracy, early death, and death. Courtship is the first stage of an organization's development. And the reason why I talk about courtship is that many nonprofit CEOs have dealt with that reality of having a dream in your head, but not having the resources to build upon it, but had a passion and still have a passion, had to go through courtship based on dreams, possibilities, hopes, passion. The primary goal of this stage is to build the founder's enthusiasm and commitment to this dream. The higher the risk, the deeper the commitment. As Conrad Hilton said, if you wish to launch big ships, you have to go where the water is deep. In courtship, it is normal to experience fear, uncertainty, and doubts. What exactly are we going to do? How is it going to be done? When should it be done? Who is going to buy this and why? Now is the time to wind tunnel test the brilliance of the founder's vision. The goal of the fledgling builders should be to add value and satisfy market needs. Founders that are in it solely for the money often don't have the fortitude to sustain their companies over the rocky road they were encounter in infancy and go-go. And I'm going to talk more about infancy and go-go. Let's talk about infancy. In infancy, just like infant mortality occurs if the company is unable to continue to fund its negative cash flow, makes a mistake that results in an irreparable loss of liquidity, or crucial founders lose their commitment and interest in their baby. A prolonged infancy can also create mortality when the founders finally realize that after years of struggle, they have little to show for all their hard work and suffering and decide to hang it up. A go-go organization is a company that has a successful product or service, rapidly growing sales and strong cash flow. The company is not only surviving, it's flourishing. Key customers are raving about the products and ordering more. Even the investors are starting to get excited. With this success, everyone quickly forgets about the trials and tribulations of infancy. Continued success quickly transforms this confidence into arrogance with a capital A. I'm going to give you an example, and this company was far beyond go-go. They're probably in their prime. But Subway, at one point, had more franchises and more stores than even McDonald's. In fact, I believe in the first quarter that it surpassed McDonald's in 2007 and 8. Matter of fact, for the next 18 months and quarters. Because of the healthy realities of Jared and many, many others. But what Subway did, they saw the rapidly growing sales and strong cash flow, and they started to lose their focus on the healthy eating and the Subway brand and started making pizzas and those sort of things. Now, it's important that when you are seeing sales, you never go away or you're constantly assessing what was the mission and the purpose that made you unique. The reason why Starbucks is successful, their sale is two things, is to, first of all, have end caps, their location, end caps of major places. They're very deliberate with that, to be personalized by writing your name on the cups, and that you're not just a ticket item or a number such as McDonald's. And also that they stay focused onto their very mission of making gourmet coffee fast. So the question that we have to do in this go-go culture of consumerism, do we need to reassess our mission? When was the last time we were reassessed? Are the things that we're selling or the things that we're doing based upon our original goal and mission? During the adolescent stage of the organizational life cycle, the company is reborn. And I believe that COVID-19 and beyond allows us to have a rebirth, an assessment. This second birth is an emotional time where the company must find a life apart from that provided by its founder. This critical transition is much like the rebirth a teenager goes through to establish independence from their parents. That it comes a time in any company that the founder's vision, even if it's tangible, can get in the way of the growth and the natural development of a company. We see this. We see this in Socrates and Plato's Republic, of urging his students to go beyond themselves by asking questions, to be a gadfly. We see this of Jesus of Nazareth, who always wanted his followers, his disciples, to not only get it, but to go further than him. Greater works than you will do than even myself. So to a point that they became so enamored by the personality that the fruit of the work didn't take place until they had to sink or swim. And then the company is like that. Adolescence is an especially stormy time, characterized by internal conflicts and turf wars. Everyone seems at odds with everything. Sales fall short or exceed production's estimates. Quality is not up to customer expectations, and old timers plot against the new hires. We find this not only in companies, we find it in churches, that the biggest tune, and I'm a churchman, I'm a pastor, I'm a preacher, the biggest conflict comes from the natives and the immigrants. The natives are ones that have been a part of the church and the families when the first brick was founded. They're the ones that feel entitled to the church. The immigrants are those who have come to the church after that no matter how long they stay, they're still the outsiders. We see this in gospel lessons between the Gentiles and the Jews. That's a lot of discussions about who are in, who's out. You have that in any company, in any culture. The founder, the founder's children, the founder's tight-knit group versus those who come from the outside. And no matter what those do on the outside, no matter what ideas that they do, there always is a tension, particularly in adolescence. And it's so important, just as adolescence is crucial in the development of what you will become as a person, as a man. The next development is crucial in a company's life. If that is not done correctly in transitional time, it will add to premature aging of a company that can lead to the early departure of entrepreneurial leadership or the professional managers, leading to pathologies called divorce or premature aging. Now, if one can survive adolescence, then you go into prime. But before I talk about prime, let me give you some letters for you to write. There are 4 letters that you have to look at in describing a company's culture. You can do this with church, you can do it with anything, but a company's culture. P, big P, is productivity. Okay? Big A is administration. Big E is entrepreneurship. Big I is integration. All 4 are at their ultimate in prime. Productivity, you can look at the numbers, the production is at its all-time high. You're expanding into new markets, ventures. There's a nice mix between the founders, those before, and new crop. You see, look at the church, look at anything. You have administration, firing at all cylinders. Entrepreneurship is still high. You're still acting as if that you could have 300 ventures and you're still acting as if it's one. Entrepreneurship, ideas. And then integration. That the integration and the implementation of these is at this ultimate high during prime. So, for instance, let's say if you're talking about emphasis, as I talked about, what would be the big P stands for is at a good place. When it's small, it's not as important or crucial. So if you're doing emphasis, what do you think it is? Would there be a big P or small P? Is it a lot of productivity? No. Small P. Is it administration? Probably not. Small A. You don't have much to administer. Is it a big E or a small E? Big E. Entrepreneurship is at its height. The founder is going to places, selling stuff, talking to people. Entrepreneurship, the risk of money, of talking to people, looking for donors is at its highest. E is a big E. And the integration is small I. You don't have nothing to integrate. But in prime, big P, big A, big E, big I. Prime is the ultimate position on the life cycle. where the organization finally achieves a balance between control and flexibility. Prime is actually not a single point on the life cycle curve. Instead, it is best represented by a segment of the curve that includes both growing and aging conditions. This is because flexibility and self-control are incompatible and there's no stable equilibrium. Sometimes the prime organization is more flexible than controllable, and sometimes it's not flexible enough. These are the characteristics of an organization in prime. The organization is guided by the vision of its reason for being. There's a clear purpose, and people know what they will do and will not do. They walk their talk. The company operates in a focused, energized, and predictable manner. Stretch goals are set, aligned, and consistently achieved. There is an enterprise-wide focus on customers and earning their long-term satisfaction. There's a high degree of customer loyalty. At the same time, the organization knows when and how to say no to the market. You can be picky. It is disciplined enough to protect itself. Priorities are clear. The organization knows what to do and what not to do. It enjoys a certain composure and peace of mind when making tough decisions. The entrepreneurial spirit is fully institutionalized. Evidence of organizational fertility abound. This creativity repeatedly produces control, profitable innovation. Organizational structures work well. Opposing forces are balanced. There's alignment between vision, strategy, and structure. And also, you embrace change. Prime companies work hard to adapt to changes in markets and technology so they can gain share from weaker competitors. They enjoy consistent above average growth in both sales and profits. What happens when you have a fall? When you move from prime into the curve of descent. The fall companies are often cash rich and have strong financial statements. Like medical tests, financial statements reveal a problem only when abnormal symptoms finally surface late in the aristocracy stage. Fall companies are ones that spend in a 2-hour meeting, hour and 30 minutes on the financials, as opposed to the research and the entrepreneurial spirit and the balance of flexibility and control. That the money or how it looks on the book guides its discussion. If it ain't broke, what? Don't fix it. The company is losing the spirit of creativity, innovation, and the desire to change that brought it to prime. It has sown the seeds of mediocrity. As the desire to change lessens, the organization mellows. There is less contention than in previous stages. More and more people are adhering to precedents and relying on what has worked in the past. People are starting to go to picnics. People are starting to create silos and trips. It's more about relationships as opposed to business. From time to time, creativity is a push for change service, but such eruptions become less and less frequent. When it becomes noticeable is a stage called aristocracy. As organizations enter aristocracy, they characteristically are cash rich and have very strong financial statements, have reduced expectations for growth, demonstrate little interest in conquering new markets, technologies, and frontiers, focus on past achievements rather than future visions. They talk about the good old days. They talk about when this person was here, a CEO was here, are suspicious of change, reward those who do what they are told to do and punish those who do not, are interested in reducing their risk, invest much more in control systems, benefits, and facilities than they do on risk and development. Form dominates function in the organizational climate. More emphasis is placed on how things are done than what was done. Value uniformity, consistency, and formality in dress, decorum, and behavior. In other words, it looks good. You have the function of a 12 board member. You have the Brooks Brothers suits. You have things filled in your calendar. But in the back of your mind, those who are in the company know and can feel that there is something looming that's just not right. And then all of a sudden, recrimination and disaster comes. Something that finally erupts this facade. It could be a firing of a CEO. It could be an employee. It could be a controversy. It is something that is public that causes the blame game, changes the direction of the whole company. It's something that people don't talk about. It's something that people bow their head about. It's something that takes away what the company is all about. When this happens, and let me say another thing about aristocracy too, there's also that just like as an aristocracy in government, the same people do everything. Even though they might not be in a meeting, they're making decisions behind closed doors. As you are in a meeting, they could be on a beach, but they know everything they're going to the meeting. They're making decisions. They're merely almost puppets within the meeting because the form is so important to have. So after the eruption is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy should be dead. The company and bureaucracy is kept alive by artificial life support. The company was born the first time in infancy. It was reborn in adolescence, and its third birth is in bureaucracy when it gets an artificial continuance of its life. That might be a change of management. That might be dealing with what has taken place with the loss of money. You might get a changeover or a donor. It might get a leader who was a mere figurehead. And death occurs. And let's look at, just to make sure that you're getting this. In the time of bureaucracy, you have early and late bureaucracy. What would be at its height? Let's look at the Adizes model. Production, is it a big P or small P? Small P. Finally, production is definitely wavered because of the controversy. Production is, even though you might have money, you might have an infused life or a donor, it's a small P. Administration, big A or small a? Probably a big A. The administrative process is taking place. You want to show that you have administration, that you're seem as if that you're moving forward. It might be a big A. Entrepreneurship, big E or small e? Definitely small e. The spirit of entrepreneurship was leaving in aristocracy. And integration, big I or small I? Small I. I mean, even though you have administrative function, they're not integrating because the administrators are just doing their jobs and it's just functional. It's just to get a good review. It's facade. It's making sure you look good when you evaluate it. It's people actually who are part of a family system that were chosen to do that. And this really goes against what many nonprofit CEOs do. So the question I have, based on these examples, where are you in this life cycle? Are you experiencing trauma? Where are you? if you really honestly reflect, are you in prime? Are the cylinders still motivating you for the entrepreneur spirit? Are you an aristocracy? Most people are. Are you an early bureaucracy? Most people are. And what are some ways that you can move forward from this circle of life, from trauma to transformation? I'm gonna use these last 10 minutes to tell you what I would suggest. I am a peer group chair. I believe that it's so important that CEOs meet with other CEOs for conversation, ways to be a better executive, not with somebody just telling them, but among other CEOs. So I offer to you to contact me if you're interested to meet with other business leaders in your city, in your location, for executive coaching. If you have a business size of 2 million, we have different levels. I'm a convene chair. We have the Genesis group. It meets once a month. Meeting length is half a day. The location is in your city. We offer executive coaching. And the business size is less than 2 million. Or if you're looking for an online peer group, the meeting frequency is twice monthly for 2 hours. The location can be anywhere. It's a video conference. And yes, you have executive coaching. And the business size varies by groups. Most nonprofit CEOs don't have a budget over 2 million. So I ask you to consider becoming a member. But before you consider that, let's have a conversation. I will introduce you to the head convene chair. We'll have a conversation, see where you are, to assess, to facilitate, and to walk with you on this journey. We'll reach out to you deliberately and with Christian focus. The way that I can be reached, again, my name is William, William E. Flippin, FLIPPINJR. My cell number is 770-289-7951. My email address is theologian, THEOLOGIAN76 @gmail.com. Let me repeat that. Theologian, THEOLOGIAN76 @gmail.com. And I end with these words. I believe that those who are listening to this are some of the best CEOs in this country. For you to be a nonprofit CEO tells me already about your commitment, your mission, your call, that you look at your job as a call, not merely just to make money. So it is important that we lead the charge. We lead the charge to come up with collaborative practices to make sure that those that are employed under us are giving the self-care that has not been taught to us in corporate America. That we change the paradigm of how it is in understanding the circle of life, to delve deeper into not only a company's organizational structure, that's the first step, and really not the most important step, but to get to know the individual and to know that even CEOs, as gifted as you are are in need of peers to learn from, to grow from, to collaborate from, and building the circle of life that is interchangeable, that work life is indistinguishable about balance, but that is just a part of who you are. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I so look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.